Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Nashville, it's time for Nashville Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nashville Business Radio. Mike Salmon with you. We are broadcasting from the JW Marriott in downtown Nashville. And let's not waste any time. Let's get to our first guest. Stuart Cooper is a Client Development Director with Provisions Group. Stuart, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Tell us all about, before we get into your decades worth of work in IT, let's talk about Provisions Group. It's a kind of a new place for you now. Tell us what's going on there and tell us what the company does.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm brand new over here. It's a phenomenal company. It's a top 10 management consulting firm in the Nashville area. And we have a lot of different wings over here. One of the things that we do is IT staffing, but that's not all that we do. We have project services for IT and just a number of different things related to consulting and modern workplace, Microsoft 365, virtualization, network security, infrastructure. It runs the gamut. It's based in downtown Franklin, and which is fun. One of the reasons I went over there is I live in essentially downtown Franklin. I live about 2.5 miles from there.
So which is about how far from downtown Nashville?
About 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 minutes. So if you're anybody that's listening that's outside of the area, the Franklin area is real fun. It's where you run into a lot of the country music stars and things like that. It's where a lot of those guys live. So it's a blast. I can ride my bike back and forth to work. And I just love it. It's a group of about 60 folks that are over there. The owners are phenomenal. And I've actually wanted to move over here to this company for a long time. My identical twin brother worked there for about 6 years, and I know about 10 guys that work there. And so when they hit me up and asked me to come over, I said, where do I sign?
Easy sell for you then.
Yeah.
You have a wealth of experience in the area that you're going to be specializing in. Tell us what you're going to be doing specifically. And again, your title is Client Development Director. So what is your day-to-day job?
It's kind of fun. It's an individual contributor role with a little bit of training for some folks. I've got a strong, as you mentioned, a strong sales background, about 22 years in sales. So one of the things they want me to do is come in and do some training with some folks and kind of get them up to speed on sales or just helping them out in how to close deals and run some big deals and that type of thing. But Salesforce is going to be sort of my first project to get that up and running. We do work nationwide, but I'm going to be probably doing some other things shortly after that. So I'm excited about it. I'm moving away from a leadership position in the company that I was at most recently, and to get back into an individual contributor role just sounds nice and refreshing. So
you mentioned IT staffing is one of the big things that the company does. When you say IT staffing, what does that mean? Does that mean if you're a company and you don't really have a full-time IT person, you provide that person as needed?
Yep, it could be. And actually it's funny, I did, for about 6 years, I was a recruiter, a headhunter. I know you're up from Atlanta, so my dad ran the Management Recruiters International firm, their corporate office in Atlanta for several years, and so he opened up his own company called Cooper Staffing and Consulting. And I did that for 4 years or so, and then did recruiting and some other things. So this is kind of similar. There's some permanent placement aspects to it, but there's also contract to hire or just contract work. So a very large company like an HCA or a CHS or some of these really large Vanderbilt may come to Provisions Group and ask us to staff people on a contract basis. So in essence, they become employees of Provisions Group. We pay them, but then we're paid by the client. And so then that's kind of how there's I guess our profit, the way we make the profit is on the split between what we're paid and what they're paid. But we, in essence, have a lot of folks on our payroll.
Everyone knows the IT world, it's a fast-moving, rapidly changing environment. And with you having been in the business for almost 2 decades now, you obviously have gone through a lot of that change. How do you change with the times? How do you navigate through all the changes that are going on in the IT world?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. So I've been in sales and business development for about 22 years. About 10 of that has been IT, but it has felt like 20 or 30. So it's interesting. Anybody that's listening that's in, and there's a number of people in the Nashville area that's in, obviously in IT. It's real big up here, healthcare, IT, and music. Those are the three big ones. But change is inevitable. It just happens all the time. So if you don't initiate it, which often happens, some headhunters hit up folks and run different opportunities by them and say, hey, come over here. Sometimes it happens at the right time. But if you don't initiate it, oftentimes it's initiated to you, whether through, if you've been in sales for 20 plus years, there's going to be times that you don't hit the mark. I've had that happen. So it's unfortunate. I don't like it. I'm usually on the front end of anything that's going on. So if a company opens up a market, I'm at the very beginning of it. And the folks that are at the very beginning of opening a market are the ones that get hit with the bullets. So if your leadership comes to you and says, hey, we have this wonderful idea, what do you think about it? And you think, yeah, that'd be great. I think I can spin that up and make that happen. And you go after it, and it doesn't happen within the time that they allot for it, then they may ask you to do something else, or they may ask you to leave. So that part can be hard. It's like professional. I was talking to a next door neighbor of mine has been in sales for a long time, and he says it's like professional sports. Every single year you have to be performing. And if you don't perform, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
So I've told people before, I've literally said, hey, bring me over here. If it doesn't work out, let me go. I'm a big boy. I can handle that, Mm-hmm. And but more often than not, it's gone really well. But change in IT is just inevitable. I was actually working for a large company that I wanted to base my entire career on and stay for 20 years or longer. And I got recruited over to the IT industry through a friend of mine that owned a company called Claris Networks. And Claris was a fast-moving IT firm. We probably had maybe 110 people, 3 offices, so Knoxville, Nashville, Chattanooga in this area. And we were doing about $20 million in annual revenue. And we were doing IT managed services. And then we were just growing rapidly. I came over. I was one of the first people to come over to the Nashville market and open it up. And about a year into being over there, my friend knocked on my office door and said, hey, come in here. And he had tears in his eyes. And he said, I don't know how to tell you this, but I just sold the company. I'm so sorry. I know I completely changed your life by bringing you over here, and you left a company that you wanted to be with forever. I hope you're not mad at me for doing what was best for my family. And so I said, hey, let's stop talking about me for a second. Congratulations. That's amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did really well. So, and I said, I'll be fine. And so I stayed on with the next company that came there. He said, I'm not sure what's going to happen here, but Claris was purchased by TechLinks. And then TechLinks, about a year and a half later, or about a year later, acquired a company called Guidant Partners, which I brokered that acquisition. That was fun. And then we got it scooped up by C-Spire. And so,
Holy cow.
I mean, yeah.
More change after change.
It's crazy. And then in addition to all the logo changes, which I have coffee mugs for every one of those transitions, and on top of all the logo changes, there's role changes. There are staffing changes. There are people changes. There are who you're reporting to and that type of thing. So I've had a lot of change in my career. So we added it up the other day. In 22 years, I've had 19 job descriptions.
Holy cow.
I think I'm moving to my 20th at Provision Square. I think this is my 20th.
You get the gold watch for that. When you get to number 20.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's pivot just a little bit here and talk more about sales, because you've done sales for a long time. A lot of our listeners are business leaders and executives and sales folks, of course. So what have you learned in your 2 decades of selling that you might want to share?
Yeah, that's a great question. I cut my teeth with a company called Cintas, and one of the things, it's a Fortune 500 company. Their stock trades higher than Apple. I think they were, last time I checked, almost $400 a share. It's probably higher than that now. I think it was $6 billion company. It's probably a lot higher now, but they taught me a lot about time and territory management, geocoding. We did phone blocks. We just heavy activity. I learned a lot of activity over there. But when I got pulled into the IT world, I moved up to a higher level of sort of the C-level communications with CEOs and CFOs and that type of thing. And I got introduced to Sandler training. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah. They have a show with us on Business RadioX.
I need to listen to it.
2 shows, actually.
Yeah, I've got
out of our Gwinnett studio and out of our Forsyth County studio.
I'm a huge Sandler fan.
Good to know. Yep.
Yeah,
Great
Dave,
folks.
Yeah, Dave Segrave's the guy who I mentioned that started that company, or he was one of the founders of the company that the first company that I mentioned that sold. When he was in his early 20s, he took out money. This will be a plug for Sandler if anybody's listening in sales and they want to do this, but he paid on his own, which was not insignificant. It's a lot of money. Annually, and they bill you monthly and that type of thing, but you have lots of meetings and you go and they train you, and he paid for that out of his pocket. And then he encouraged the folks that worked for him by his example, and then just one of the best salespeople I've ever been around. And so you're kind of sold on it, saying, hey, I think I should do that too. So I did that. And I don't. My investment wasn't as much as his was, but I did it virtually before we hit the COVID world and virtual. Somebody out of Memphis was doing it for me. Thank you, Bill Piper. Basically, yeah, I learned so much through that. I love Sandler. Negative reversing is a big topic that I like to use. I love. Do you know what that is?
Negative reversing. I'm going to guess, just based on what I know of Sandler and everything that Al Simon, who's our host in Gwinnett with Sandler Training, has taught over the years. Is that where you're almost trying to, not really, but you're almost trying to talk them out of doing it to see if they really are committed?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not hocus pocus. You're not trying to manipulate. You're not trying to do something that you shouldn't do, but you basically, if you're the higher up you go in the food chain, when you get up to the CEOs and you're dealing with them, they think very rapidly. They're very decisive. They know what they're thinking, and you don't have to try to push somebody to a sale. So the way that I illustrate it, and I can't do this on the radio, but if you picture a clock, and the clock goes from 12 o'clock to, let's say, around the clock, it goes clockwise to 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, back up to 12 o'clock. Getting someone to, let's say, a large deal, a $2 million deal, whatever, $3 million deal, that process is taking someone from 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock, right? And so if your prospect, if the CEO, the CFO, CIO, whoever it is you're dealing with, their interest level is at 3 o'clock, what negative reversing would say is you go back behind that. You go to 12 o'clock. If they're at 6 o'clock on the interest scale, you go to 3 o'clock. If they're at 9 o'clock and they're about to be sold, you come back to them to 6 o'clock. And so the way Dave would do this, I saw him do this all the time, is he would just ask questions that no one is going to ask in a sales-related environment when you're trying to put a deal together. He may say something like, they're very interested. I mean, we've had 5-6 meetings. They're moving closer to signing, and he'd say, hey, it just occurred to me. I mean, are you looking at anybody else? What other competitors have you thought about? I mean, is doing nothing an option? Something like that. So he would say what they're thinking and give them permission to think it out loud, and then it's out there and you're dialoguing about it. And so then you basically get to the point where you're,
well, a lot of times then that CEO is he's doing the selling. No, we want to do this, and you've changed roles in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're solidifying it in their mind, confirming it in their mind that this is the right choice.
Exactly. Without getting into all kinds of examples of that, I mean, I can think of a few. It's powerful. The other thing that Sandler taught me is if you think it, say it, and but soften it. If you think it, say it. But soften it. Yeah. If you think it, say it, but soften it. So basically, ask their permission to say, hey, this may offend you. I don't want to offend you, but can I say something that's on my mind? And then just say it. And so without getting into a bunch of examples on that, I'll say it at times it can lead to conflict. So I've had conflict with C-level folks all the time. And from the get-go, because that's the other thing is the sort of parent-child. And I was trying to teach this to folks that at the company I was at before. You can never sell from a child psychology setting. You have to be in the driver's seat. You have to be the parent, the nurturing parent, and you're putting them into a position of a child basically, or they're even level playing field with you. But you can never sell from the begging, from the child standpoint, saying, "Hey, please do this," or let them. They're driving, the car. They're in charge. They're telling you what the next step is, or if it was RFP, et cetera. You have to have your hands on the steering wheel, and so I try to do that from the very first call. Anytime I ever talk to somebody, and so I've had at least 4 examples where I got into heated arguments with C-level folks, CEO, the first time I met them. And heated. I'll give you one example. April of 2014, I pick up the phone. I'm just cold calling. I'm calling some folks, and I don't suppose you'd want to have a high level discussion about whether or not you need your internal IT department. That's kind of how I would start.
And they'd probably say, well, you're right. I don't want to have that discussion.
Yeah, a lot would. Yeah. And so I may find commonality or somehow connect, but I don't do a lot of cold calling. It's a lot of network referral based, but in this instance I did. And so April of 14, I call this place and I have that conversation with the CFO, and he says, actually, yeah, our IT director is probably going to quit in the next 2 years. Why don't you come in and talk to me in the fall? And, we need to, that would be a good option to have. Instead of hiring another IT director, we just outsource that whole function. And so I call him September, we meet, good meeting. He says, hey, let's just check in every quarter for the next couple years or so. And so that's fine. And, because a lot of these are slower, what I was selling there, they take a while. And so, but Christmas week, December 26th, I think it may have been right day after Christmas, I'm driving down the road in Cool Springs Mall on the right, and I get a phone call from the president and CEO of the company. He says, hey, Stuart, I this is the president of such and such company. I know you've talked to my CFO. He gave me your card. He told me to call you. Listen, we're in a bind. Our IT director, we thought he was going to be here for, several years. He just put his notice in. He's going to leave in 2 weeks at the beginning of the year. What I need for you to do is, put together a quote and bring your best price. And I'm looking at price. So I'm going to pick the lowest cost option. And then, we have to have all this moved over in the next 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. And so I just, if you think it, say it, but soften it. What I thought was, I don't want to meet with you.
Right.
Like, it's a waste of my time. Yeah. So
if all they care about is price.
Yeah, exactly. So most people wouldn't do that. They would, and I wouldn't have done it in the past. I would just jump through his hoops. At that point, he's in the driver's seat. When and where. Yeah. And so I just said, hey, can I say something that may, I don't want to upset you, but can I just speak freely? And he said, sure, what is it? And I said, I don't think I want to meet with you. And so he said, why? And I was like, well, you just told me that you're going with the lowest price. We're actually probably 25% higher than the closest competitor, and we're a value play, not a price play. But the other thing you said is that this transition needs to happen in 4 weeks. And there's not a company on God's green earth that can make that happen. It's just not going to happen. And so I don't think it's worth my time is valuable, and I don't think it's worth my time. So I'm sorry, but I don't think I want to meet with you. And he just started screaming at me. Like, I cannot believe you would talk to me like that. You are a salesperson. I am the CEO of a company that, whatever. Right. And he goes on. And so I took the phone away from my head and let him yell at me while I'm driving down the road. And I had 3 thoughts that went through my mind. As one, speak back to him, don't take that. And then 2, hang up. I don't need that. And then 3, be humble and somehow try to figure out how to move this forward. So I just said, hey, it's not my intention to offend you.
But you're also, you could also say, I'm being respectful of your time too. I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a humble way of.
Yeah, it would be. And I don't know if I did that, but I think I said, hey, why don't we move to a face-to-face meeting? He did say, be at my office tomorrow at 11 a.m. with an engineer. And it's Christmas week. And so I said, okay. And so I got off the phone. I called our VP of our healthcare and said, hey, I don't even know if this is possible, but could you show up? And he did. And so face to face, he was very humble, and he said, hey, Stuart and I had this conversation. He kind of put me in my place. I know this is going to take a lot longer than what I thought. And I know that my expectations are unrealistic, and I know you're going to cost a lot more than anybody else, but I still want to talk. And that meeting became 4 or 5 more meetings, and we sold that account. And so that's just one example. There's been so many, to the point where anytime I have conflict with a CEO or a CFO or CIO, in one of my initial conversations, I'll tell them my faith level is so high.
Well, I'll tell you, if anything, they'll remember you.
Yeah,
because most, like you say, hey, you're a sales guy. Most sales guys will go, okay, what time, where, and what time do I need to be there?
Yeah,
and you're like, I don't want to meet with you. Now, I don't know if I would have said it that way myself. I would have said, in respect of your time,
you're right.
It may not. I don't think a meeting would be fruitful, or you could just say, I don't want to meet with you.
Yeah. It's funny. I had one guy yell at me in the lobby of his building, and he just lit into me. And I just came back at him and basically said, hey, and this was going way back, but this was when I was at Cintas. I said, hey, look, I'm actually a patron at this place, and I've been here multiple times with my family. I have a large family, and of the other people that I know that I've sent over here. I don't appreciate the way you're talking to me. And he immediately relented. And so I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't do, is they don't carry themselves where they're kind of, you need to be respected as well.
Well, I don't want to get into a conflict with you, Stuart, but we are
no, I'm not gonna.
We are running low on time. As you make this transition now, and you're in your new role now with Provisions Group, talk about what excites you the most as with this transition for you.
The culture. I'm most excited about the culture. Whenever you work, this is just more personal, but whenever you work somewhere, you've got to, if the culture is good and it's just a good group of people. So these guys, that's what I'm most excited about, is these guys. Actually, it was funny, even when I was talking to them and meeting with them, one of the owners sent me a note that said, hey, I'm praying for your interview. I won't be there at this one, but there's other folks that'll be there. And then I had a number of people just basically that said, hey, the guys over here are just phenomenal. The leadership is 10 out of 10, 10 on a scale of 10. I can feel their care. It was kind of interesting just being in a place where, I think in this day and age right now, if you can work wherever if it's all results oriented and just get the job done, but it doesn't matter when you work, where you work, how you work. That's I resonate with that a lot. I shared that with my team when I was leading a team in this former role that I was in. I constantly told them, I don't care where you work, when you work, I'm here for you. But I didn't care if they worked 15 hours a day or 10 hours a day. I know you can get a lot more done
as
in a
long
shorter
as the work
time.
is being done.
Exactly, yeah. And so I feel that over here. I think just the short answer would be culture. I'm super jazzed about the culture and super excited about it, but also they have such a wonderful reputation, and the location is cool. I got to say that it is a fun place to. I've always thought I'd love to work in downtown Franklin.
Well, congratulations on the move. Wish you nothing but the best. Hopefully, you won't have too many conflicts and fights with CEOs.
I don't want to. It's funny. That's just some things I've learned from this. It's not like I do that all the time.
And when Stuart's not saying get into fights with all these people, this is not the Sandler sales tip.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, anybody at Sandler may be going, "Oh gosh, he's misrepresenting what we're saying," but no, it's just some things. Maybe it's something I've probably learned over my career, is just to be in the driver's seat. You don't have to be in conflict to be in the driver's seat. You could actually. I will share this. Just the most recent deal that our team brought in that I was kind of leading and heading up. I just communicated early and often, constantly. It was probably 12 meetings with this company. It was a financial services, and they just did a big deal with us. And basically, there was no conflict at all. It was just completely pleasant the whole time, and that's generally how it goes. That's almost 90% of the time that's how it goes. But I was I was leading, so I said from the beginning, hey, as we meet, if I don't think this is going to be a good fit, I'm going to let you know. I hope you don't mind me telling you, no, we're not a good fit for everybody. Can I tell you that? And so just most people don't do that. Sandler teaches that.
Well, the company is Provisions Group, the website provisionsgroup.com, one of the top IT consulting and IT staffing firms in the Nashville area. Stuart Cooper is the Client Development Director, and best way to reach you if somebody wants to find out more.
Probably go to LinkedIn. If you look up my name, it's Stuart Cooper, and then it's the one that says MBA in Nashville. That's probably I'm on LinkedIn all the time. That's probably the best way to catch me. I think it's Stuart.Cooper/2 or something like that. But LinkedIn is the best way to catch me.
All right, Stuart, thank you so much for joining
Mike.
us.
Yeah, this was awesome. You're awesome.
Appreciate it.
Go Falcons. And Braves.
There you go. And we're in Nashville, so go Titans, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nashville Business Radio is the name of the show here on Business RadioX. We want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us. We're broadcasting from the JW Marriott here in downtown Nashville. Until next time, Mike Salmon saying so long. And again, this has been Nashville Business Radio on Business Radio X.